Of course, we cannot abide cheating. Give the match to the team with the incinerated one. What's up everyone, Ice4623 here with a special video on Trials of Osiris. This video will have multiple aspects of Trials included, such as why Destiny 1 Trials was so popular and special with its lore and loot, Trials of the 9 game modes and lore, what all of the hype was around its possible return and the demand and letdown of Trials, and how to make Trials great again. More loot! This will be a rather long video about the past, present, and future of Trials of Osiris, but I hope you all like and enjoy this video, as well as find it informative. Trials of Osiris was first introduced in Destiny as an alternative pinnacle activity to counter the raid for those players who were more interested in PvP rather than PvE, with the addition of Trials to the bland and exhausted PvP game mode. Now the player base had something to look forward to during the weekends. The Elimination game mode was heavily based on team play and having a strategy, as you only got one life with the chance of being revived. Later on, the revival system was changed multiple times to bring more balance to the game mode, as it was starting to become a strategy within itself. This mode had many players watching live streams of their favorite YouTubers and Destiny 2 content creators play and show videos of Trials of Osiris. Whether it was on how to get the weapons, to what the weekly map was, to just watching a streamer get flawless in Trials, this mode sparked excitement throughout the gaming community. This specific game mode also had a connection-based and card-based matchmaking, meaning that whatever amount of wins you had on your card and whatever amount of losses you had on your card, you would get paired up with people around that skill level and type of connection. The weapons in Trials of Osiris back then were phenomenal for the most part. From year 1 to year 2 to year 3, you were able to get weapons and armor just by winning a match or completing bounties, making this experience rewarding for top skilled PvP players and for collectors of armor and weapons. Loot incentive to play Trials was there, because it rewarded players who didn't want to or had the skill to go flawless or get 9 wins with your fire team without a single loss that shows up on your passage. When you went flawless, you also had the opportunity to get adept weapons, which in Destiny 1 seemed amazing because they had a type of energy in the kinetic slot, making them a kinetic energy weapon. To simplify this, there were 3 slots. Heavy weapons, which took heavy ammo, which is purple, were in the final slot and had an energy type of arc, solar, or void. These weapons included machine guns, rocket launchers, a fusion rifle, and swords. The secondary slot, which used special ammo bricks, which are green, in Destiny 1 specifically consisted of secondary weapons that had a certain energy type. Again, solar, void, or arc. These weapons primarily consisted of snipers, shotguns, fusion rifles, and sidearms. In the primary slot, we could have kinetic weapons, which were weapons that took white ammo bricks, like auto rifles, pulse rifles, hand cannons, scout rifles, or certain exotics that could be placed in the primary slot. These primary slot weapons, aside from one exotic, did not have an arc, void, or solar damage type, so in order to destroy enemy shields in PvE, you would need certain types of damage like solar, void, or arc from your special or heavy weapons. When you went flawless in Destiny 1, you had a chance at weapons that had these damage types in the primary slot. Not only that, but they were some of the best legendary weapons in the game, along with some of the best perks or abilities. These weapons were called adept weapons, and they are what made people want to play Trials even more and get to flawless. The armor inside of Destiny 1 in Trials was also captivating, as it looked amazing and it showed off the fact that you had gone flawless, making it rare. There were different versions of the armor when you went flawless versus just getting the armor from bounties. Again, the loot incentive was there, and it made people want to play Trials as both weapons and armor were rare, cool, and valuable in the game. Another reason to play was the fact that it was light enabled. So if you had higher light than most people that wanted to play Trials, you would have an advantage for putting a lot of hours into the game. All hardcore players and streamers loved the idea of Trials. In fact, if you weren't doing Trials, you could hardly say that you played Destiny 1 Crucible. Every person that liked PvP and wanted to play the most competitive activity would play Trials. Trials had little complaints to its system back then. It was almost the perfect game mode. Not just in Destiny, but in other games too. It was considered top tier if you had gone flawless or even played Trials of Osiris. In Destiny 2, they have a lore tab for Trials, and every week when you get your first win in Trials in Destiny 2, it would open a new lore tab for you to look at. In the lore, Sister Feora was among the first followers of Osiris who had landed her ship on Mercury in an attempt to follow Osiris, but when Osiris said no, her and her followers still didn't budge. Osiris later told them to keep an eye on things here on Mercury for him, and this began the formation of the Lighthouse. According to the book Trials and Tribulations, Chapter 3, Sister Feora had said, "The Traveler alone will not save us. We are meant to save the Traveler and all of its people," which, as she said, was from Osiris' own words. Brother Vance replied with, "The very same people who would have cast us out? Who exiled the Prophet himself?" Vance had exclaimed, thus leading to some conversations that Vance and Sister Feora later had, and she began to trust his wisdom about Osiris' beliefs. Trials had been set up after a battle in which the Lighthouse had reacted to two different people, Leanna and Aramac. Leanna had been resurrected by her ghost during the battle, but Aramac had died in battle. The Lighthouse had made a sound when each of them had died. Later, Vance had told Sister Feora about his discoveries, and she allowed him to have a couple of warlocks to help him further in his discovery. They performed death rituals where they attempted the same thing and tried to get the Lighthouse to react. Later on, Vance had received permission to begin a competition that was similar to Shax's in order to see if the Lighthouse would react to the Guardians with the best connection to the light, thus beginning the Trials of Osiris. To enter this realm is to leave mercy behind. The emissary says this while claiming your weapons from Trials tokens. After the completion of the Red War campaign in Destiny 2, there was a new endgame activity for powerful loot-seeking players, Trials of the Nine. Trials of the Nine was the same concept as Trials of Osiris. You still grabbed a ticket and it was available on the weekends, just like Trials of Osiris back in Destiny 1, and you still got to demolish stacked enemy teams that wanted their slim chance at going flawless. Although since Destiny 2 was a new game, there were a lot of differences in how the Nine ran it. For example, the game modes in Trials were Survival and Countdown. Survival is a mode where you get a certain amount of lives. After you've used up all of your lives, if you had no extra lives left, you were knocked out. It is similar to Elimination, but you had a second chance if you died once or twice, and you couldn't get revived in the middle of the match. Countdown is similar to CSGO's competitive game mode. You either had to plant the bomb, defuse the bomb, or destroy the enemy team before they got to do the same thing. If you are shot while defusing the bomb, the game would make you start the timer over again. Survival was the better game mode for most people that played. Almost everyone hated Countdown. Execution of this game mode was extremely poor since the map was the largest in the game and was sometimes impossible to defuse the bomb if you were on the other side of the map. Aside from the map, Countdown seemed to be difficult for players to master and get used to, which made going flawless even harder. The meta in Trials of the Nine at the time was far different than from when Trials of Osiris was out. Earlier in the video I had spoke of Destiny 1 guns and the slots they were in. Destiny 2 weapon slots were strange to Destiny 1 veterans. In the primary slot was your kinetic weapon, it took white ammo bricks and it included things like auto rifles, pulse rifles, hand cannons, scout rifles, sidearms, and the brand new submachine gun. Energy weapons were in the secondary slot, and they had replaced the special weapon slot back in Destiny 1. They were charged with either solar, void, or arc elemental energies, and depending on which energy you had your gun set to, it was easier to take down supers if they were the same energy type. Energy weapons were able to do more damage to shields on opposing guardians and inside of PvE activities. Bungie had said that they were struggling to find the right balance of special ammo economy back in Destiny 1, because shotguns and snipers were both one-shot kills in Crucible and in Trials. So were snipers and shotguns still in the game then? Yes. They were now in the heavy slot, where their ammo was restricted and couldn't be found unless you picked it up from a specialized box inside of PvP, and in PvE you just found it randomly through killing enemies. This was called the Freedom System. It gave players the freedom to try loadouts that were unheard of and were considered fun by Bungie and their supporters. You could run a double sidearm build. You could run 2 auto rifles, a faster firing auto rifle, and a more impactful, but not as fast-firing auto rifle. You could run double scout rifle. It was whatever you wanted. The meta in Trials of the Nine mainly consisted of Mida Multi-Tool, an exotic scout rifle that they brought back from Destiny 1, Uriel's Gift, a new auto rifle in the energy weapon slot, and the Last Hope, a sidearm in the energy slot. Back then, these were considered top tier, along with the Antiope D submachine gun, which was practically unrivaled at the time. The weapon system in Destiny 2 was far different from Trials of the Nine. In terms of loot incentive, anytime you got your 3rd win, your 5th win, and your 7th win, you would get a piece of armor or a weapon. If you went flawless, you were able to get a beautiful emblem that tracked your flawless tickets, and you were able to see a cutscene with the Emissary of the Nine. Every Trials weapon and some pieces of armor had lore behind it. The Long Watch sniper rifle had the biggest and probably most relevant piece of lore behind it. It was a speech within the Nine, and they talked about how there is an end to everything. Piece of lore is a conversation between the Nine and Orin, who was born as Nasia Sarwar as a human, and Nasan At as an Awoken. She was a Titan Sunbreaker, and a friend of the Queen, before she went searching for the Nine. After her encounter with the Nine, she was transformed into the Emissary, who is the person who ran and watched over the Trials of the Nine. Her motive was unknown. Orin had asked the Nine, "I need to know what you found there," and upon an answer from the Nine telling her no, she had asked for the coordinates for somewhere. She was then transformed into the Emissary after that. The Emissary is also seen to talk with or see what the Drifter has been planning with Gambit Prime and Reckoning, although that is a story for some other time. Her transformation from a Guardian to the Emissary was mentioned by Mara Sav as becoming a shell. Trials of the Nine was only similar to Trials of Osiris because you had received weapons from winning multiple times, and the ticket system was similar to Trials of Osiris, only with 7 wins needed for flawless and not 9. The weapons like the Long Wath, Adjudicator, the Sudden Death, Prosecutor, the Darkest Before, and the Last Breath, and more weapons were included in the loot pool. Although they aren't the best of the best, back then, and some of them even now, were considered and are considered to be amazing and have perks that considered them still to be good. A Cold Sweat was something a lot of people used to do the Thorn Quest, where you needed void hand cannon kills. Its stability is easy to handle, and it's hard to miss shots with this hand cannon. The loot incentive in Trials of the Nine was there, but it was nothing in comparison to the adept and amazing random rolls on Destiny 1 Trials of Osiris weapons. Now, everybody who played Destiny 1 and 2, everybody who follows Destiny YouTubers and streamers has heard this question be asked. Do you believe that Trials will return soon? Answers range from not anytime soon to they need to fix Destiny 2's PvP system and guns before they can add Trials in, and even the occasional yes, but with a reason behind it. Before Trials arrived in Destiny 2, the only point of playing Crucible was for Iron Banner, Pinnacle Gear, the Unbroken title, and other guns like Mountaintop that other people still didn't have, or for fun and montages. Pinnacle weapons at first helped to make it worth playing competitive to get these one-of-a-kind guns, as Pinnacle weapons were outdated and extremely busted, like Recluse, Revoker, etc. Komodo was a ritual, crucible, linear fusion rifle, and it had some okay perks, but it was not worth using in competitive game modes like competitive and potentially Trials if it ever came out, because it needed aim and prior charge time, which at that point you would just use a sniper and take them down before. Other heavy weapons were also superior, such as Wardcliff Coil, pretty much any grenade launcher with spike grenades, any rocket launcher with cluster bomb and tracking module, and many other choices were far better than using the ritual weapon Komodo. Why should I use this weapon when there's this old one that does the same thing but better? Revoker and Mountaintop are still reliable and easy to pick up guns once you had them, and most of the PvP players were seen using them over other grenade launchers and sniper rifles. We've also heard the cries of other players who say, well, there are weapons that can get some pretty good rolls, and if you use the right mods, they can be extremely powerful and meta-breaking. Well, yeah, this is true. The season mods can make for some very interesting plays and weapon builds. Although the way that the seasonal mods in Season 9 were executed was poor. It was hard to understand and didn't give much benefit, unlike the new seasonal mods with the Warmind cells. An old reliable quote that Datto, a Destiny 2 streamer and YouTuber, has used in a couple of his videos is, "There's so much to do in Destiny, and none of it matters, or feels like it really matters." Datto, as most people watching this video should know, is a Destiny content creator and streamer who has seen the ups and downs of Destiny 1 and 2 over the past few years. Now, he is mainly talking about the overall state of the game, but this can also be used when one is looking at the state of Crucible. Before Trials of Osiris came out, Bungie had said that there were going to be some changes with exotics, supers and weapon types, and more. They put this out because it was a new season and they wanted to see a new meta. One that wasn't filled with backup planar rentals and snipers constantly. The new meta in this game is now auto rifles, hardlight, revoker, Suros regime, shotguns, and sidearms. This was mostly different from the last season, aside from snipers and shotguns. As last season, the biggest issue was backup planar rentals, and just any fusion rifle with backup plan. This change in meta and in weapon types was huge. So much so, that Hardlight and Revoker are two of the most seen weapons in the meta currently, in competitive, in regular Crucible, and in Trials. So, Trials is back. Destiny's PvP is finally cooking up some spicy meatball. And everything is ending well, right? Wrong. Bungie did work and put a lot of time into Trials. That much is correct. But it did come out half-baked. The ticket system was alright, no complaints overall there. Maps are alright, even though the first few maps were relatively new ones, so it's a little bit harder for players to adjust. The problem lies in hackers and loot. On PC alone, there are so many ways to hack Destiny, and there's no downside to people hacking because they can just play on a new account, because Destiny is free, and all you need for Destiny 2 to play Trials is 960 Lite. No requirement like a seasonal pass purchase or even just a better hack detection system. Also, with the coronavirus pandemic going on currently, it truly is hard for Bungie to go and fix everything inside of the game when they're still adding in content to keep people still investing time into Destiny 2. On console, the hacking problem isn't a big issue because it is harder to do, but sometimes there are still hackers who aimbot and can see through walls. First thing to fix the Trials would definitely be to fix the system that they use to handle hackers. Acecross and a couple of other streamers had mentioned that there should be a paywall. Like you can only play Trials if you purchase the Season Pass, which was about $10, which isn't a bad place to start, and it would be a little bit more difficult for hackers to get another account, but overall the anti-cheat system needs to be upgraded and improved on Bungie's end. Another big issue, loot. Loot. The loot system is horrible. Every 3, 5, and 7 wins you get a piece of loot which you can then use your Trials tokens to try and get better rolls on those weapons and armor. That's not as much of an issue. The bigger issue is that the Trials ticket matches you with people of the same wins and ticket type as you. So if you have 1 win and 1 loss, you are likely to face other people with 1 win and 1 loss. The first 3 wins of a Trials ticket is so difficult because in those first few wins, you will face people who are just farming tokens to get better rolls on their gear. You can farm tokens by simply resetting your passage after 3 wins and staying in that same area of play where there are noobs who don't know how to play Trials yet. So, to farm, you pick up the ticket that gives you the bonus tokens whenever you win. You reset after getting 3 wins or 3 losses, whichever comes first. And that's it. That's how you farm. It's very easy, and it's really annoying to players who are actually trying to go flawless. Loot in Trials as general is garbage. The armor looks cool. It glows when you get flawless with the emblem. But the only weapon that's really worth going for is the shotgun and maybe the sniper and the rocket launcher. As said previously, why would I use this gun over that gun when the old one is better? Since there are no adept weapons, the excessive amount of cheaters and farmers that exist, and lack of incentive of loot and actually going flawless makes communities and fire teams believe that Trials is not that great, that it can be better, and it needs fixing ASAP. Especially to make flawless worth going for. On PC especially, with all of the hackers and farmers, there's not a worse time to play Trials right now. In the future, some things that should be looked at to make Trials a better environment is better loot, a hacking detection or anti-cheat system that detects and puts hackers in the grave where they belong, and maybe even a paywall to top it all off, making hackers and cheaters less likely to be in Trials. The future of Trials currently is looking bad. It is up to Bungie and constant reports from the community that include constructive criticism, not yelling at Bungie to fix it. Trials of Osiris needed to be added in Destiny 2 at one point, but it needs to go through a lot of changes before we can truly say that it is worth playing Trials. Some of the weapons that are currently in meta could also use a little adjusting, making things like Hardlight actually have range fall off, making Revoker not the most used sniper rifle, and have players actually not get a bonus for missing a bullet. But then again, that would just ruin another pinnacle weapon, which nobody wants. Trials is a game mode that most Destiny 1 veterans loved and respected as arguably the most difficult PvP activity to exist in Destiny's history. We would love to see this game mode become what it was meant to be, challenging and rewarding for the players who put their time and effort into learning Crucible maps, meta, loadouts, and more. Thank you to everyone who stopped by and watched this excruciatingly long video. It took a lot of time to put my own thoughts and the thoughts of streamers, players, and content creators into a video like this, and I hope a lot of you have all enjoyed it. If you would like to see more of this kind of content, please feel free to leave a like and your comments down below of what you thought about this video. My link to my own channel will be down in the description below, which also leads to my Twitch channel, where I do specific raid carries and messing around in PvP and PvE activities with my friends. Thank you all for watching. I'm Ice4623, and until next time.